In 1908, a lawyer known as Louis Brandeis stood before the Supreme Court of the United States. He did something very unusual. Instead of filing his argument with pages of legal precedent, he chose to fill it with something else. Facts, reports, statistics, evidence about ordinary people, the working day, the conditions in which people lived, the physical and social consequences of the law. He was making a simple point. One cannot understand a law without understanding the people it affects. It became known as the Brandeis Brief, and it changed the way legal arguments are created. Because sometimes the most important evidence isn't found in a courtroom. It's found in a factory, a home, a church, a school, a hospital, and a street. It's found in the lives of people who rarely get to speak. And maybe this has something significant and important to say to us today. There was a time when the Christian voice stood comfortably in the public square. Church bells, schools, parliaments, courts, hospitals. The language of faith was familiar. Perhaps not always believed, but familiar. Now, something is changing. The space is narrowing. Christian beliefs are increasingly questioned. Christian convictions are increasingly challenged. What was once considered an expression of faith may now be called offensive. What was once conviction may now be called intolerance. What was once freedom of conscience has now become discrimination. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the squeeze begins. Not through dramatic persecution, not through prison cells, not yet, but through 1,000 smaller pressures. A law, a policy, a complaint, a workplace rule, a social media campaign, a demand. Keep your faith, just don't bring it here. Believe, but don't speak too loudly. Worship, but don't influence. Pray, but don't challenge. Preach, but don't offend. The public square is still open apparently, but some voices are becoming less welcome than others, and so perhaps we need a new brief. Something like a Brandeis brief. Not simply an argument about whether Christianity is true, but evidence. Evidence of what happens when faith is pushed to the margins, when conscience is compelled, when belief becomes something to be tolerated only in private, when Christians are told, "You are free to believe anything, provided it changes nothing." And perhaps this is the question before the church. Not, how do we regain our power, but how do we remain faithful when we have less of it? Because Christianity was never born in the comfort of cultural approval. Its earliest followers were misunderstood, marginalized, mocked, and sometimes criminalized. Yet they continued, not because society applauded them, but because they believed something greater. The truth does not become false because it is unpopular. The truth does not disappear because it is silenced. And that the kingdom of God does not depend upon the permission of the culture. So perhaps the real brief is not the one we present to the world. Perhaps we are the brief, the evidence, the testimony, the living argument. And in a society increasingly asking Christians to be silent, perhaps our greatest response is neither fear nor anger, but faithful lives. Lives that speak truth. Lives that defend conscience. Lives that refuse hatred. Lives that love even those who oppose. Because the Christian faith has always been the strongest, not when it was protected by power, but when ordinary believers, under pressure, refused to stop being faithful. The squeeze may be real, the margins may be narrowing, but the final word, the final brief, as it were, does not belong to the culture. It belongs to God.